All right, James, I got to get your take on something that I think is on a lot of people's minds. Why wouldn't Trump just release whatever information they have about Epstein? What's up with
I'm
this
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
giant?
not familiar with that name. Who is
this, who? Epstein.
who? Epstein.
You're still talking
Yeah.
about
You're
this?
still talking about Epstein? Yeah. Talk about a tone deaf, completely tone deaf response. I want to parse a couple of things. Look, I'm a former intelligence guy. There's a lot of words being thrown around. Um, I want to mention this. So first of all, so there's the obviously extremely plausible scenario about Epstein being involved in the intelligence community. People throw around a lot of words. I just want to clarify some things we're talking about. People talk about intelligence agents, uh, intelligence assets, et cetera. Just to kind of educate everybody, about these. An asset is somebody that's essentially providing intelligence to an intelligence agency. That's an asset. The difference is they might not know that they're doing it, right? It might be, again, a honeypot operation where somebody's sleeping with some hot chick and giving all these secrets away in their pillow talk, and he doesn't know that she's collecting this information on behalf of some government intelligence agency. He doesn't know that. So this person is an intelligence asset, but he's not an agent. An agent is somebody that knowingly provides information and is willingly working with some intelligence agency. An operative is somebody, a lot of times people go, oh, that person's a CIA agent. What they probably mean is a CIA operative is somebody that's actually doing the collection. So is it possible that Epstein was an intelligence operative? Yeah. Yeah, duh. You think? Of course. Of course. And this in no way should be controversial. Okay. If you, what do intelligence agencies want to see? They want to see, the agent of agents, the wet dream agent of all these different, everybody in the intelligence community is somebody that's got access to extremely high level connections all over the world, people who know things, that those people would either be maybe agents willingly providing information or assets, and then those assets would then be able to give access to still other assets and have this whole downward connection. And you get all that through one person. That's just that's the golden opportunity of everybody in the intelligence business. And if you can combine that with somebody who has dirt on everybody below him in the pyramid, that can in a way force people to provide information. And if you don't do it, then I'm going to expose you as the most vile thing that a human being can possibly be. Worse than a murderer, worse than a genocidal dictator, is somebody that touches kids. The most vile thing that a human being could ever be. And if you don't give me this information, I'm going to expose you of that, which you can't run from that ever, even in death. Somebody could hang themselves in their jail cell, and they're never, their reputation is never going to recover from that. Their family's going to know it. Everybody who ever speaks their name is going to know it. I mean, it's just the worst thing you could possibly go down in history as being. So this is, for an intelligence, some intelligence agency, is the most powerful thing you could have. And if so, for a guy like that, where they go, here's a guy who has demonstrated serious expertise in being able to ingratiate himself into multiple different communities, the scientific community, the political community, the business community, the finance community, all these different areas, and break through all that stuff, not only ingratiate himself, but insert himself to the highest echelons in each of these different academic institutions and all these different things. This guy was everywhere. He was with everybody. He was hanging out with celebrities. He was hanging out with heads of state. He was hanging out with frickin' everybody that there was to hang out with. That's a gold mine for an intelligence agency. And so for them to know, like, okay, this guy's the sickest human being that we've ever come across. We got to finance him, because he's going to go around and get all these other people to do all this evil, vile, nasty stuff. And this is the amazing thing, is that, supposedly he had this fund Suppose he had this fund. He was getting hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, whatever, inflows his fund. Nope. Why hasn't anybody checked that out? You got to file government records. You got to file all these disclosures. How is nobody checking that out?
If you have $10,000 in a foreign bank account, you need to file with FinCEN. The IRS is obviously going to have mountains of information about this, and there should be trails that you can follow.
Unbelievable trail.
Yeah.
I look at these leftist organizations. Who are those pieces of shit that always do the guys that went out and stole the tax returns from everybody and published them? ProPublica. For the people. Yeah. Where the hell is ProPublica? They go on this crusade to go, oh, we published Warren Buffett's tax return. Who gives a shit about Warren Buffett's tax return? Where is Epstein's tax return? You didn't think to get Jeffrey Epstein's tax returns? You didn't think to get his hedge funds, all that paper trail that exists and all that stuff? But you published you published Elon Musk's tax return for the people. What about you go and get Epstein's tax returns, all that stuff? I mean, shame on you. Shame on ProPublica for all the things that you've done, but shame on you for not actually using that asset that you had at your disposal to go and highlight this criminal fraud that's been perpetrated on people for so long. Shame on ProPublica. Shame on all these ultra wokey leftists. We were subjected to all this bullshit about the Russia hoax, about all this stuff for so long. And where's the New York Times? Where's the Washington Post? Where are all these guys and their hardcore, deep dives into who are the people that are actually funding this? Who are the people that are actually providing the money? Where's all that? You got the goddamn Pulitzer Prize for a hoax, for the Russia hoax, and you can't bother yourself by going and figuring out where's the money coming from with Epstein? Shame on all of these people. All of these people.
But it's like you were saying, I mean, Epstein's dead, but if he was an intelligence operative, then the information that he collected isn't dead. So there's multiple layers here, right? So who has that? Which intelligence agency?
Which intelligence agency was it? Yeah.
This to happen. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to comment on that? Do you have an idea? A lot of people say Mossad, but
yeah, a lot of people say Mossad. Possible. I wouldn't have any information. I mean, I think I guarantee it wasn't the French. I don't think he was working for the Chinese. I don't think he was working for the Russians. I mean, I would imagine if he was working for Mossad, I have to imagine he was also working for the agency in the U.S. And if he were working for Mossad, but not one of the agencies in the U.S., in some respects, that's almost even worse, because how could the entire U.S. intelligence and law enforcement community allow that to happen under their nose while you have a guy who's raping children under formal and foreign influence and funding, and you just sort of sit back and go, la, 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 nothing to see here. Let's charge and prosecute him, but given the ultimate sweetheart deal, in some respects, that's almost even worse. It's all bad. It's hard to say what's better or worse. None of this is good. It's all of it. All of it is vile and disgusting and horrible. And I think there's only two reasons why they can't release this, why they won't release this stuff. I think the thing I really wonder is, what do they know in the last administration? Not Biden, the last Trump administration, the first Trump administration. What do they know back then? And how much was actually brought to light? Were they really not paying attention? I don't know, but I mean, they came out. I mean, it was either Eric or Don Jr. Went and said, during the election, I think during the Republican National Convention, they saying we got to release, the Epstein stuff. Why haven't the Bidens gone and arrested anybody and all this stuff? It's like, well, hey, these guys are in charge now. Why aren't you doing something? And I think there's only two reasons. Number one is that it would demonstrate that the U.S. government actively funded a long-term, multi-decade ring of pedophilia, funded by the taxpayers and actively supported by the federal government and the intelligence community. And I can't imagine the consequences of them actually admitting that, and they just don't want to admit it because they think it would just be revolutionary. Capital R. And
As in, there would be a revolution.
I don't think it's off the table.
No.
I don't think it's off the table. I think people will be so utterly disgusted. That might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. There's a lot of tension in the United States, and I think that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think it very well could be. The other reason is that they're saying, all right, now we're getting our arms around all this information that maybe we didn't have before. Maybe we didn't look at it hard enough. Maybe we didn't, whatever. There's a lot of cover up. There's a lot of things, whatever, we just couldn't get to. There are a lot of people in the swamp that were protecting it and sitting on it, whatever, and just wouldn't give that information up a couple of years ago, but now they are. And now we actually, we walk into the room, we sit down, we read all this stuff. And this is actually the thing, like when in the way these things like work, like in terms of classification, document classification, the intelligence community, there's literally a room that you'll go into. And you'll sit down like at like a very like barren room. You'll sit down at a table. It's completely empty. There's like a chair and a table. You sit down and somebody brings you files and you just sit in this room and you read these files. You can't take the files out. Obviously there's no phones. You can't take pictures or anything like that. And you just sit there and read these files. They go into the room. They sit down and go, holy shit. They walk out. And number one, they realize it's vile and disgusting. And number two, they realize, boy, we got these people now. All of these foreign governments, all these foreign leaders, all these guys, now we've got this tremendous amount of leverage and pressure and blackmail. We can blackmail everybody we want to, basically on the planet to whatever it is we want to do. Tariffs, sure. Mar-a-Lago Accords, sure. You're going to sign.
Suddenly they agree to that, then
you're going to sign the Mar-a-Lago Accords. Otherwise, I'm going to expose you as the most vile thing that a human being can be. And so they're doing it to, make America first. We're gonna use all this horrible stuff that we have on everybody because America first.
And you're saying that's a plausible reason why Trump would have backed off and not released it so that he could use it.
I think that's a potential reason. I would think if you're going to do that, you would at least level the people. That you'd come out and say, I saw what's there, and it is goddamn horrible. However, we're going to use it as leverage to get what we want, to make sure that, all this stuff. And, that's all I'm going to say about it. Respect that I'm making, a difficult decision and, blah, blah, blah. I would think that the President of the United States would have the authority to be the one to make an extremely unpopular decision like that about what to do or not do with that kind of information. However, the reason I don't think that's the case is because there's going to be a laundry list of people. You're talking about thousands and thousands of victims over a very long period of time. And is the likelihood that, come on, like it really is. There was never any other, wealthy, powerful person who ever partook in that alongside with Epstein. Come on, give me a break. It's ridiculous. We talk about the grooming gangs in the UK where you had, hundreds and hundreds of guys, that were in on this thing, doing this same horrible, vile act, and the British government said, la, 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 they didn't want to hear about it either because there was a cover up there as well. And this is a thing that is actually one of the most reprehensible and disgusting thing about politics is that the most important thing for a politician is to never have to admit that they were wrong because the only thing they give a shit about is getting reelected. And so if a politician has to say, man, did we really screw this up? That's, to them, they go, oh, I'm not going to be able to get reelected. So they have to pretend they can't admit defeat. They can't admit failure. And I think in the case of the UK, where they said, we had these horrible policies for so long. We let in all these refugees. We let in all these migrants. We decided to have this multicultural Britain. And how did that work out for us? Absolutely horribly. Absolutely horribly. We got all these people in the streets chanting Allah Akbar outside of outside of churches, beating people up, stabbing people with knives, running people over in the streets. Hooray, multicultural. You got people and their kids go to school and they're the only ones that speak English, anymore because everybody else is a foreigner living off of taxpayer funds. Now, also, it's been a freaking disaster. And it's been one by design because politicians were dumb enough to say, this is the policy that we're going to have. And then they had to, and I'm still talking about the UK, by the way. Then they would have to go back and say, oh man, there are all these grooming gangs, right? All these migrants, and yes, some non-migrants, but a whole lot of these migrants organizing ringleading these grooming gangs to do one of the most vile things, the most vile thing that a human being could possibly do. And there is a direct line, a straight line between our pro-multicultural BS open border policy and the most vile act a human being can possibly commit. And we would have to, if we actually acknowledge that as politicians, we would have to acknowledge that everything we did was wrong. The decisions that we did were wrong and have destroyed our country. And we're not going to do that. So instead, we're going to stymie, we're going to gaslight, we're going to censor, we're going to threaten you, we're going to pass laws to say, if you have a problem with it, we're putting you in jail. If you post memes, we're going to call that a hate crime and put you in jail. Which is and like, people aren't stupid. They know that when people say, don't trust your lying eyes, believe us, there's nothing to see here, people aren't stupid. And the politicians are going to get thrown out anyways. And I think that's what we're looking at in the United States. I think that's what we're looking at in the United States, that people would have to admit that there was this horrible thing that they did that went horribly wrong, and they shouldn't have done it. And they would have to admit just a massive amount of failure. And the reason, again, I don't believe the leverage option to say Trump's got all this leverage now and he's just about to blow it out of the water with the trade deals as a result of that. Okay, yeah, I think you could argue that that's his decision, but I still think that that's something you have to tell the voters. I think you have to come clean and say, there are horrible things that were done. We're going to use it to our benefit. And I think that, somebody's going to have to bear the political consequences of that. I'm making an extremely calculated, cold political decision that I think is going to benefit us in a freaking trade deal, as opposed to bring people to justice who did the most vile, horrible thing that a human being could ever do. And yeah, that might technically be the president's domain in terms of decision making. I still think that people should know. And the reason that I still don't buy that is because out of all the people that would have partaken in such a vile and horrendous act over years and decades, sure, maybe some of those people are heads of state, former this, former that, bigwigs, major decision makers, prime ministers, whatever. Because Epstein was rolling in those circles, man. And maybe they can use that all as leverage. But there's going to be somebody who wasn't. There's going to be somebody who is just a, wealthy businessman, Hollywood celebrity, something like that. Who gives a shit if that guy gets found out? So at least, throw some bones. Give us a few names.
Bill Gates or something. You're saying,
I'm not gonna defame anybody by saying, this person's in the list. We're not at all suggesting who is and isn't there. Obviously it's very public that a guy like Prince Andrew was publicly accused. And there's a lot of people. You see these names, you see these lists floating around. They say this guy's in it, that guy's in it. I'll believe it when I see it. I think there's a lot of, this guy was cozying up to a lot of people. It's very clear that people like Bill Gates were in touch with Epstein. There are a lot of people that were in touch with Epstein. There are a lot of people. The Journal did, the Wall Street Journal did publish something where they said, we got a hold of his diaries and here's some of the people that he was meeting with and stuff like that. And that was as close to I saw as some list of people that he was dealing with. And it was a wide variety of people. Again, it was celebrities, heads of state, former heads of state, business executives, financiers, tech people, engineers, inventors, whatever. It was all over the place. It was all over the place. And I feel like somebody on the list of co-abusers, somebody's going to be not critical to this, we got to get a good trade deal with the frickin', with the Nigerians. We got to get a good trade deal with Germany. We got to get a good trade deal with Brazil. Okay, fine. Somebody on that list is not crucial to any trade deal. So throw a freaking bone and show some names, because otherwise then the only, I try and look at what are the possible scenarios, and the only plausible scenario I can come back with is that the answer is so vile, they just don't want anybody to know that the United States government was actively funding and supporting the most vile thing that a human being could ever do. And I think that's the reason. And so instead they're just, they're gaslighting people. It's the same thing that they did in the UK when they found out about the grooming gangs, and they try to gaslight everybody and say, what are you, you're a conspiracy theorist. Why are you worried about this? We have all these other problems, et cetera. And people didn't let it go. because they shouldn't let it go, because it's the most vile thing that a human being could ever do. And because the government was complicit. In the UK, they saw these things and said, I don't want to be accused of being racist. I can't go after these because they're foreigners and they're protected and blah, blah, all these different things, these massive failures in the system. You've got a 13-year-old girl that ends up in your prized National Health Service multiple times for a miscarriage. And you don't think that doesn't raise an alarm bell? That doesn't raise a red flag for you? You don't have alarm bells going off left and right, and you don't think to do something about that? And this happens dozens, if not hundreds of times. Shame on all these people. They're all scum for not doing what they're supposed to be doing to protect children. And the United States government may be complicit in that. Man, I'm of the opinion at this point that, like, that's at this point, I think that's the only reason why. Maybe there are some other possibilities I'd be happy to entertain, but I mean, I think this is potentially explosive.
Thanks for your insights.